Hello everyone, welcome to my cozy cabin. It's just heating up, so do excuse the breath. It's a little bit chilly here in Canada. However, I'm doing just fine, so don't worry about me. I'm used to this. I have had a little bit of a cold, but I'm used to being here in the cabin and waiting for the fire to warm us up. And today I wanted to chat with you about the notion of healing trauma through play. And I'm going to discuss more actually with you a couple of things from this book. This is Attachment Play by Aletha Salter, and she also has another book that I'm going to kind of touch on the ideas of how we can heal trauma through different sources as well that I have come across myself, and just get a little bit more understanding of what it means. I don't think trauma has to be something that we are afraid to talk about. The more we talk about it, especially when it comes to our younger children, who can and do heal from trauma quite quickly when the way is paved, i.e. when you as the adult know what they may be trying to heal, what they may be trying to communicate. It can go much more smoothly. The natural process of just living, any of us, we incur a bit of trauma or more for some people, but the natural process is that it can be healed day by day, and if things aren't getting in the way of that, then including adults that they themselves are, have layers of trauma, if they aren't getting in the way of their child's healing process by misunderstanding things and trying to, do something about it that maybe isn't the quite right way to do it, then the trauma can actually become worse. But if you're informed about it, then you can kind of step out of the way and but also direct your child to something that's a little bit more helpful. And I wanted to talk about those things today, what they could be. There's a lot of times where we won't understand what children are trying to say, and that's why play is really important, even as adults. In a way, you could say that the universe is always playing with us. It's always sending messages, symbols, dreams, conversations, synchronicities, through any means possible to get you to go down a certain trajectory, potentially, and heal something that is potentially trapped inside. You can think of trauma as trapped energy, emotions in the body that take up room in the body, and they can take up room in a way that it's difficult to express, because that's kind of in the way. So expression is a number one thing that can be altered or changed or undesirable when it comes to trauma. The way that you express changes if you have trapped trauma. And you may know about that when it comes to your child. Maybe they changed from one period to another, if you're paying attention. And then you can do something about it. And this trapped trauma can come through differently for everybody. So there's just little things to look out for. Specifically during play, we're going to talk about, because there's lots of ways to look out for this. But the main thing I would say is we're not searching for it. It's just that when it comes out through something joyful, we are looking at it and saying, okay, this is the body's, the mind's natural way of wanting to heal itself. How can we implement this into this moment, into the day? And a couple of examples that it gives in the book, apart from just kind of knowing that maybe your child is expressing something that they're trying to heal, they're trying to either get a need met, or they're trying to heal something, they're trying to communicate. When you can know that, you automatically across the board, you just deal with it a little bit differently. Because when the child is acting a certain way, and you might go into thinking that they're doing it for naughty reasons, but what I'm trying to say is that underneath, at the very bottom of all, like underneath the layers, if there's some layers that the child has already picked up on, some masks they've put to deal with the world around them, underneath all of that is always the body trying to heal itself, the mind trying to heal, the emotions trying to heal. So when you can know that and get curious, it changes the way that you may discipline the child. Discipline might not even be the word. It changes the way that you hopefully worry about the child, because what we want to do here is involve play, involve investigation, involve curiosity rather than worry. So what it does for you in being trauma informed about what's going on for your child is you worry less and you get curious instead. And one of the ways that you can do this actively is through play, which this book talks about. Talks about how your child will let you know what it is that they struggle with. And it may play into something that you struggle with, it may not. It might be completely unique to them. But one of the ways this book talks about that can happen is through play, especially when they're, a bit older, maybe 2 years old and above. They start to reenact certain situations that they themselves haven't understood. Because another way to look at trauma is we all have it, and we all have it in different amounts. And essentially a way to look at it is it's just something that happened that we didn't fully understand, or we haven't made sense of, we haven't accepted it for it to move. We haven't made peace with it. And for many different reasons, right? And that's not to say that you as an adult needs to do anything you don't want to do when it comes to trauma. I'm talking about children. I'm talking about the fact that when children are young, they're a lot more resilient, they're a lot more capable of healing. And when they do heal from things that happen, that, you know, don't have layers upon layers of other things added, process is much smoother. You know, they can grow up and be all the things that they are already without these blockages. Okay, number one thing being expression. The way that they express themselves is going to be who they are, really, and that's what we want. It's for them to be confident in who they are and be able to do the things that they came here to do, and you know, and that they want to do whilst they're here. So that's the main goal. And essentially you can look at things like what kinds of games the child will play often, like if it's a reoccurring theme. And you can look at, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be trauma based. You can also have children exhibit a certain behaviour, talk about a certain thing, or play with something that they just want to discuss, that they just want to play with. So being mindful of the fact that it might not always be trauma. Again, that's where the not worrying about things incessantly comes in. But something that to one child, maybe two children go through similar experiences. Let's say two children from different families go through a C-section when they're born. And one child might, you know, when they grow up, learn about that and may be unaffected by that situation. Didn't incur any trauma from that. The other child, for whatever reason it may be, incurs some trauma from that. And they may try to display this by trying to reenact a doctor, for example, or trying to reenact the scenario. And it's really quite clever. It's really very intelligent. And this is why you'll see adults reenacting certain traumatic patterns from the past. They're trying to recreate the scenario and fix it or understand it, make peace with it. And again, as the parent, if you can notice that, oh, they're playing doctor again, I wonder if there's something I could, I think, again, the main thing is getting out of their way. So if you're finding it annoying that they keep doing that with you, the main thing is to understand that they're actually doing something quite good for themselves, and you can help that process along, especially when you're not getting annoyed by it, especially when you can actually even steer it in the right direction. And another thing you can do as well is when you do have children displaying less than desirable behaviour, you can coax them again toward the right kinds of behaviour through play, which I think is really just one of the best ways to come at trauma, because I know that we need the clinical side of dealing with trauma as well, but I really like this notion that it can be more playful than that as well. doesn't always have to be through a psychologist, psychiatrist, through a medical team to help with things like this. It can be more explorative, more playful, more imaginative, which again is just a really fascinating concept for me. And it's about being able to win over your child in this way. Because one of the things that we all inherently are born wanting to do is play. And it's a way of bonding. It's a way of feeling good, there's something about play that is really intrinsic to human nature and health and joy. And so finding ways to turn everything into a little bit of a game can really change things. A lot of it comes from your ability to let go. Sometimes you'll have a goal when it comes to play. Are you trying to heal some trauma with your child? And it won't work out in that way. Something else will happen. So it's also about knowing that it's about the journey of that, like I say, one of the most boring things we can do, in my opinion, is to not try at all. Then there's no story, then there's no play. And not only not try, but deny that those things exist. And you might just have that in certain periods of your life where you can't, you just don't have the bandwidth for it. That's different. That happens. Looking at trauma isn't always ideal. So I guess there'll come periods in your experience where you have the bandwidth, and you'll get there in your own ways. But when it comes to children, they remind us of what we were and what we can be. So it's both. It's kind of like working with your own traumas, but like I say, sometimes your own traumas can get in the way of helping your child to heal. So it's just about being aware of those things. So I'm going to read a little paragraph here, and this is talking about how you can facilitate good behaviour, how you can win over some good behaviour with your child. After your child has attained the ability to understand symbols by the age of 18 to 24 months, you can use symbolic play to communicate with her about ongoing conflicts when they are not happening. Through a make-believe story, you can reenact your conflict and make it humorous and silly so she laughs. Depending on the circumstance of what the trauma was, may be easier for something that's lesser. So for example, it talks here about the fact that if your child protests with potty training or with brushing their teeth or any kind of, like hygiene thing like that, or eating vegetables, whatever it is, you can play a part in that story and in that role, and you can reenact that role to them, mirror it back to them. So for example, you would play the part of a mother rabbit who's trying to get the baby rabbit to brush their teeth, but the baby rabbit doesn't want to let the mother rabbit brush their teeth, and you turn the game into nonsense play by exaggerating the baby rabbit's protests and resistance, which is when it's turned into a game like that, you don't have the child lets go of the trauma much easier, And it's the same with adults. When we know we're doing something that isn't our best behavior, but when we talk about it, we judge it somehow. We continually lock it away more. We don't really heal it. Like, we might be aware of it. We might be aware of the behavior and not really want to keep doing it. But we keep doing it because we haven't found a way to fully make peace with it through something like laughing at the ridiculous nature of it and genuinely finding it funny rather than shameful or annoying or something like that. It needs that positive play to really be identified and accepted and moved on. And you can also invite your child to play the role of the baby rabbit and turn it into a power reversal game by playing the role of mother rabbit who acts powerless and who pleads and begs. Be sure to use your child's laughter as a cue for your role-playing behavior. You may discover that your child provides clues about possible solutions for the conflict, which I think is really interesting. You're solving it together. Whatever dilemma you're hitting up against, you're not trying to fix it all yourself, you're trying to solve it together. For example, she may suggest that both the mother rabbit and the baby rabbit brush their teeth at the same time. So I just think that's an ingenious way of, taking the micro aspect of healing trauma and trying to apply that to some of the more macro complex things that we have going on in ourselves and the world today. I know that when the main thing we can understand about trauma is that it will happen. There's going to be things that you can't prepare for, and it's almost like you're meant to go on that discovery through play with it and solve the problem. There's always going to be something there that you could be looking at and say, oh, this is something that I can tell my child really wants to explore through play. And there's going to be other things that you maybe are less clued in about. So that's one of the best ways, I would say, to get your child to cooperate. And of course, if you're not feeling in a very playful spirit, then you might not be able to win over your child and you may just have to try again another time. So finding ways to incorporate playful cooperation, though, can actually bring you into a better place, into a better state of mind. And it says here, for ongoing conflicts, you can bring up the conflicts in playful ways when they are not happening. Some kinds of play, for example, role reversal, can be effective even with teenagers. As your children grow older, you can also use more verbal discussions and conflict resolution. Remember to limit your efforts to genuine conflicts of needs while letting your children learn to take responsibility for their lives. And that's the key. You can also get obsessed with healing everything and not actually living your life. So it's a balance between those things. And for me, I was somebody that really wanted the best start for my child, and I went through lots of things called blissful birth course material and coaches that, you know, taught you how to have a really good birth. And I would say that everything basically went well with that. And there was literally the moment of birth where I hadn't prepared for. So you can do all of this stuff prior to having children, and there's still might be something that you for some reason miss or forget. So it really is okay, whatever time you do this. Your children may have left home already, and you know, want to do some kind of game with them to try and fix something that went on. There's also, for adults, you know, the ability to just work on that with themselves, with a partner or with a therapist. But I really do like this idea of taking turns and playing roles and acting out those things even more extremely, so that you can both take in the information and figure it out in real time. So that's pretty much all I have to say about healing trauma through play. Really, it comes down to not taking everything so seriously, and that's coming from someone that has, you know, taken it so seriously that I've cried, I've stressed, I've gotten into a really low mood about the fact that, you know, there's trauma and I didn't know how to stop it from happening, and I don't know how to fix it. I think there's plethora of ways to do it, and it's about letting time unfold that for you and being open to it. Being open-minded to it is key, because then you're not pretending it doesn't exist. And doing the real work. I remember somebody saying, just to leave this video off, that one of the biggest tests we have is to actually do the work whilst. So for example, if you have an addiction to something, because it brings you that playful joy, obviously you want to try and balance that out with things as well, because you can get addicted to joy. And one of the best ways for adults is to actually, you know, you would think that you just don't have that thing in the house so that it doesn't tempt you, whether it be chocolate, whether it be, you know, a substance of some kind. A lot of people say, well, if I just don't have it in the house and I pretend that it doesn't exist, that it's not a real thing, you know, that I need or want, then eventually it will go away and I won't want it anymore. But the biggest test is to have it right in front of you every day, and use your inner resources to essentially not need to, I guess you could say, ingest that thing, or have it be that specific thing that gets you to a joyful place, or have it be that specific game that gets you to a specific place. That's when you know you've healed. So that's when the child no longer needs to play doctor. They've healed the experience, or part of it, you know? And I think there's so many ways that metaphor will show up in our dreams, in our everyday life, when we're open to receiving the messages from all around. And it's a way of being a lot more playful and joyful in such a heavy topic and heavy experience, you know. I know that as parents there's quite a lot of there's a big mental load as part of being a parent, or as part of doing anything really in the world, and really getting involved in your life. And the emotional labor that we do pays off, but it can be draining and it can be exhausting. And when there's a little bit of that play, exploration and joy, it can lessen the burden of those loads of that labor and pay off in the long run in ways that, you know, can be seen, can really be noticeable. So that's everything I wanted to say for that. And there's obviously much more to discuss, so if you ever want to hear more from this book, let me know, or you can buy the book. And if you have any questions, you can leave those in the comments down below, and I will speak to you next time. Take care.